everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Ghost Furnace. I am Bond, and I'm here with my cohort, Nick Pennsylvania. How you doing, Nick?
I am all right, and I'm actually trying to get into the Spirit of Uncorked, if not the letter. So I actually had some Marlowe in the fridge that I need to finish off, because I actually bought it to make a roast, which I did back at like Christmas time. So I may as well finish it off. It is the Redwood Highway. I bought it because it was cheap and I was pouring it on a whole bunch of meat. So I'm going to put it in my Polish chicken mug and I'm having a good time.
That's awesome. Well,
Hell
Nick,
yeah.
Nick, or everyone
The
out there.
Spirit of Uncorked, if not the letter.
Yes, we are joined with our new friends, Elizabeth and Erica from Spirits Uncorked. How are you both doing this evening?
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we are super excited to finally be talking to you all. We don't get to talk to other actual podcasters very often, so whenever you both reached out, me and Nick were super jazzed about it, because like it takes a special kind of person to want to dedicate the time every week to like being spooky on like this kind of a level, you know?
Yeah.
So anytime we can meet kindred spirits like that, we are excited. So I just kind of want to dive into things, pun intended. Yeah. So one of the first things I noticed when listening to both of your podcasts a while back and everything is this idea of ghost tours on a lake, which our audience will know that me and Nick spent a lot of time talking about haunted lakes and lake monsters, especially in man-made lakes. So very curious about your experience leading ghost tours on a lake. So can you kind of just give us and our audience a 10,000 foot view of what that is like, because we're fascinated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having us. And I just want to say thank you for bringing the wine. And Erica and I didn't know if you guys were going to have wine. We like tentatively have alcohol here. And we're like, I don't know if they're going to have, I don't know if they do that. So,
we
did.
You did. Okay. Yeah.
As we do.
Yeah.
So good job being in the spirit.
We're trying to get in the spirit of things. Exactly.
But no, so I live in Atlanta, and one of the most famous lakes probably in the US is Lake Lanier, and it's a gigantic man-made lake, and it is very well known. It has a very haunted reputation, and it goes back into the 1950s. It is a man-made lake. It was dammed. The Chattahoochee River was dammed by the Beaufort Dam in the 1950s. And it's now run by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's got a fascinating history. And so my husband and I started running tours out on the lake. My husband happens to be a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer park ranger. So he's
awesome.
He's kind of got the inside lay of the land, and that helps out. He drives the boat, and we've done it for 2 summers now. We only do it in the summer because even though it's Atlanta, you never know what the weather's going to be once it gets past Halloween. Halloween is our last tour. And then, but we've done it for 2 summers and it's been great. And it's been an experience. But the tours they're not scary, creepy tours, because we do them during the day, because the number one priority is safety. And it is a dangerous lake because there are trees under the water, there are structures under the water. And so we don't do them at night. We do them in broad daylight. And so honestly, it's like a beautiful day on the lake with some interesting history and a few ghost stories mixed in. And we do them on an open air pontoon boat. And it's really great. It's a lot of fun, and it lasts about 3 hours. We stop on a little island halfway in, and people can get out and walk around the island and look for little treasures on the beach. And Erica's been on the tour, and my sister Erica, and she helps me out because she's the creepy sister, and so that's why I roped her into doing the podcast with me. She's my little creepy sister, and And I'm more like
Thanks.
the planner skeptical person, and she's my little creepy sister. So, and then my husband just does whatever I ask him to do, and he drives the boat. So we make a good team.
That is fantastic. So that's you said that it's not really like a super scary tour and everything because like I say it's in the daytime, like I said in summer and everything. Like whenever you're dealing with like customers and everything that are coming on the boat and everything, what's their normal experience like? Do they usually end up learning a lot more than what they anticipated, or is it like confirming things they've heard from like a folkloric standpoint, or what's that like?
Well, most of the people who come on the tour are out of towners. Local people don't go on this tour.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Um, you can go back and listen to season 1 of Spirits Uncorked, and you'll find out a lot about Lake Lanier's got a really interesting, a lot of like when local folklore is
Conflictive.
born. Yeah, it's conflicted. When local folklore and legends are born, sometimes like the local community will take it and like take ownership of it and be like, this is ours, and be, kind of make it their own. That is not the case with Lake Lanier. They don't like the haunted reputation of it. They
Hmm.
don't like the history. They don't want to. They don't want to recognize the dark history of it. It does have a
Yeah.
very racist past, that
Hmm.
area, and a lot of the people there are uncomfortable with it. They don't want
Hmm.
to
Sure.
acknowledge that it ever happened. And so what that means is a lot of the local people, they just don't go on the tour. So most people are out of town, and what they just hear is that a city is underneath here, and that's basically all they know. Oh, there's a city underneath here, and so we just kind of straighten a lot of that out, and
The
so they come away.
timeline
Yeah,
of
the
how it came
timeline.
about. Yeah.
Every kind of people have like a picture in their mind of like, one day there's a city like full of black citizens, and then one day the water came rushing in and
Hmm.
everybody got buried alive. Like
Hmm.
that's what everybody
Right.
thinks happened with Oscarville,
Right,
which
like
is
it was the end of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou or something.
right.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
that's
Yes, it
Yes.
literally.
Yeah. And I
um
would say too that up here in in the northern tier of Pennsylvania we
Hmm.
have the Allegheny Reservoir, which very similar story. It was part of the Corn Planter Land Grant, which was the oldest treaty with one of the Iroquois confederacies, and famously with Corn Planter, granted right after the Revolution. And in the early 1960s, started in the 1950s, and into the 1960s, they completed the dam in 63. But they actually broke the oldest land grant treaty with one of the native tribes and pushed them into Salamanca, New York. And so,
Sure.
very similar, we have a large reservoir. It was part of a flood management system,
mhm.
and lots of towns. And there's a lot of conflict about that still to this day,
Yeah.
Hmm.
specifically with the native people up. There's a
Mm,
lot of in northern tier still, but especially once you go up into Jamestown and Salamanca and everything.
right. Yeah, so I mean, so what we want to do is we just want to like talk about the history, and we just want to like recognize the importance of what happened and give it like the respect of what happened and the accuracy of what happened. And that's not the only thing that happened there, so then we talk about a lot of the other things that happened. There are a lot of apparitions that happen that are still seen after that, a lot of deaths that occurred since then. There's a Native American burial ground under the lake, and we talk about that. And so we kind of there's a racetrack buried under there, and we kind of go through all these really interesting things. So while Oscarville is the most well known, there's many other things about that region that are really fascinating, and we just kind of go through all of it. And it's a beautiful place, and it's got a fascinating history. And so I mean, I just think it's fair to talk about all of it accurately, and and I think it's also fun to talk about ghost stories.
Sure.
Right.
So
Well, and
Well, the history, we have like a duty to talk about it
yeah.
accurately. But I want to
precisely.
switch gears just a slight bit because you've already touched upon like the two main themes, and I've got a running hypothesis, which is that just like maths people and science people tend to be the same, and history and literature people tend to like gravitate towards that. I feel like a lot of people personally that are into specifically ghost side of supernatural stuff, and whether they believe or not, they have a shared love of history, and I think it's the history that gets a lot of people in. I'm kind of curious as how Erica, Elizabeth, how the two of you feel about that statement. I'm also kind of interested in the origins of how each of you became interested in this. And if you don't mind, I'll hand it over to Erica to field that one first,
I
because you
mean,
are the spooky one, I've been told.
yeah, I suppose. I mean, without going too in depth with it, I was always encouraged growing up to not believe in any of these things. And so, unfortunately, that made it worse, I think. But as a child, I experienced a lot of things. And to me, I contributed it to a lot of spiritualism and things like that. But as I got older, I started to grow this mindset of, maybe there are multiple dimensions and understanding what's really going on around us when we don't know. And that's actually kind of the basis of what I believe now. So when people come forward and say that they've seen something or an apparition or whatever, I actually kind of believe it's a crossover. And I'm always very interested in hearing about those things. I don't know that I necessarily believe that anything is out to get you. I think that it's just something that you're experiencing almost by accident, kind of.
I want to come back to that in a little while because I have,
Our thoughts.
again, kind of an independently arrived upon thing, which I've more recently discovered is more widely shared as a belief. But Elizabeth, was it the same sort of story for yourself?
No.
I'm imagining that.
It is
No,
not.
not, no, okay.
I'm very skeptical. I didn't really, I mean, I think I just like stories, honestly. I just like kind of have a imagination, and I just like mysteries and stories. And we came across like Lake Lanier. My husband got a job there, and I heard all these stories about it. I'm like, that is
Hmm.
so cool. Why isn't anyone doing ghost tours there? Let's start a
Right.
ghost tour.
It was Elizabeth's life mission as children to scare the crap out of me.
That's true. That's true.
And she never understood why I believed it so
Yeah.
much.
It
Oh,
was
that's
fun to torture
interesting.
her. It
And
really
then
was.
we came together as
Hmm.
adults and
Yeah.
started this podcast.
Right, right. But the podcast was started for the ghost tours. It was
Hmm.
really just an extension of the ghost
Hmm.
tours. Yeah.
It was,
Right.
yeah.
No, that's so interesting. So like just like what you were saying there, Elizabeth, with the you like stories, that kind of goes along really well with what you were mentioning, Nick. If we really do care about the history around us, and if certain things are just fall within like our wheelhouse and really end up in our lives, like the lake did for you, like you weren't looking for a lake to do ghost tours on it. That's what was in front of you. Like you said, we have a duty almost to like tell those stories how they actually happened. That's a really interesting situation for you to find yourself in, Elizabeth, because like you don't want to be the one telling people that what they think about their homes isn't accurate, but that's something that you kind of need to do sometimes to actually honor what actually did happen. And that can be not fun sometimes. And I think that's why, people like us end up flocking together because you end up coming across all of these things together. And Erica, like you mentioned about like also like stories and listening to people's experiences, that's something that we always say is like, and this is something I've felt for a long time. Like I believe people. Like when people say they're having experiences, I might not know what actually happened to them. And like you said, Elizabeth, with being kind of skeptical, what quote unquote really happened might be different than what they think happened. But if we concentrate on how those things affected them, then we're actually starting to learn something and get somewhere.
Well, one
Yeah.
of the things you say quite a bit, Brendan, is that our whole reality is
An
what is
agreement.
it that you say? Thank you.
It's an
Yes,
agreement.
reality is an agreement. And I always think about there's a whole idea in language that is Neo-Aristotelian thought, which is that language creates reality. And well, how could that be? And the example I like to give periodically is that I don't know if this is an apocryphal story or not, but I do know for a long time Europeans thought that tomatoes were poisonous. And it's not a silly thing. Some people say, well, it's because it's red. Well, no, no, no. They're not. They know enough. Tomatoes are part of the nightshade family. The story, what might be apocryphal, is that somebody ate a whole bushel in a public space to demonstrate that they were not. But for people prior to whenever that discovery was made, tomatoes were poisonous. That was the reality. And so something can be real and they could be still under grave misapprehension. You know,
Yeah.
that's the way I make peace with that statement at times.
Well, there can be two truths. They don't have to be the same.
No, I think that's very true, Erica. Like what is true for one person, what is true for another person are just two
It
different
doesn't
view.
make something false.
Right. Yeah, we use true and false like it is that it is like a stark dichotomy, and that's generally not the case. And I think even scientists, like even the most hard-nosed people would agree on that. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of an argument against, but
I know,
no,
right?
I no,
You
no.
can tell. I'm like, this is where I say something that I'm like, Nick is gonna hop in and be like, well, actually,
I think
yeah.
one of the there's a few phrases that have entered the culture that I've always found a little distasteful. One of them is your truth, and I'm not a fan of that because I think that is more talking about one's perspective. But I think that it
Hmm.
goes hand in glove. I guess I just don't like catchphrases.
Right.
I don't like bumper stickers, slogans as much. But
Hmm.
the other one is truth to power, which is just, why do you think they don't know what you know or something? I don't know. But
We
that's a
don't need
whole
to
other
get
thing.
into Nietzsche
Don't want to go
tonight,
there.
but
But
Well, when it comes to like paranormal situations, I mean, it really is your own personal like perspective because you can believe or not believe another person. How can you ever really truly prove it?
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, and the problem is if I saw, so let's just give a classic example. If I
Hmm.
claim to have seen an apparition, I might fully believe I saw it. And
Hmm.
I might
Mhm.
actually have seen it. But one of the problems from a scientific point of view is that we have to be able to demonstrate predictive capability.
Right.
And we don't know what we're holding on to. And if we're seeing a glimpse of another dimensional thing, which sounds like a
Hmm.
flabby statement, but it's not. It's we don't know mechanics enough to be able to put forth an experiment where we could demonstrate predictive capabilities.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. And I feel
So
like the
a person might be mistaken that they saw an apparition, or they might have actually seen something.
Mhm.
And this is one of my problems with a lot of ghost hunter stuff. We've talked about this a lot. A lot of the
Mhm.
paraphernalia of ghost hunting, like my favorite is the spirit box because that's just setting yourself up for pattern
Yes,
seeking
Yep.
that is
behaviors.
exactly what it is. I have a spirit box.
I'm
Right.
happy
Yeah.
you do
Yeah.
And
because I kind of want one.
Beth went on Lake Lanier and she did
Yeah.
a spirit box
What
situation
did
and
you?
It didn't go well.
but tell them what happened. All of
I'm
the
Got
very
equipment
scared.
went
curious.
down.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
Yeah, well, all the equipment went down and I got scared.
Oh,
She was,
seriously?
she literally called me and she was like
So,
freaking out because we had a really hard, loud answer of
hmm.
no, it wasn't okay for us to talk about something.
Oh.
And then everything went down. Now, for me, that's not uncommon. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's where I live or if it's my
Hmm.
shoddy equipment, but that does happen to me often. But for it to happen to Beth is a little bit weird.
That's wild.
At
So,
Lake Lanier. Yeah.
That is a weird story, and that would let's see. I know I say this all the
I
time
don't
too.
remember what episode that was.
Well,
yeah,
I'll have to
I kind of want
do
to go
more
back on
digging.
that. Yeah.
But it's the classic. I don't believe in ghosts, but I've lived in fear of them all my life. Like I don't
Yeah,
believe that this thing is happening, but that's a
Yeah.
little spooky. I don't like it.
Yeah.
it
It's
was.
I used to joke all the time that if you use the spirit box around 5 in the evening, you would get more weather and traffic related hits
the
than
name.
anything else.
That's a fair experiment to
Hmm.
do.
Well, one of the
Well, you
We
things.
got a
should do an
spirit box. Let's do
experiment.
this.
Right, we seriously should. I'm getting deeper and deeper into that stuff because I have a few friends that are paranormal investigators and use a number of the different like those tools and everything like you were talking about, Erica. They get some really weird results that sometimes correlate with other things. And I think that's what that stuff is really good for is like
Mm.
if you have like a one thing happen, it's like, okay, not terribly weird, but if like your K2 meter, your REM pod, your your spirit box is doing weird stuff and the lights turn off and you hear rustling, like, things do start to stack. Again, doesn't mean something paranormal is necessarily happening, but it's more data points stacked up, and that is at
Yes,
least interesting. you know.
it is. Yes.
Uh,
I'm trying to think of like examples when I was in the military, because there were nights where very strange things would happen,
mhm.
and a lot of them would be like on the full moon. And
Oh, really?
so, like where we store all of our fuel, we
Hmm.
have to count all of the lights that are active, and we have to let the control center for the runway know everything. But on a full moon, almost inevitably, I was the flight chief that night. I was running the show, and one of our lights would go off every time. And everybody said I was cursed because there was always a problem on the full moon.
Well, you
Now,
probably
is
were
that
cursed.
I
As it were, so
probably
she is the
am.
spooky one,
Right,
then, yeah.
yeah.
I am the spooky one, but like at no point in time had I ever thought any of this stuff. And
Hmm.
then, of course, like I think we did an episode on this once where I went into this old army armory, and
Hmm.
it's where they house a lot of their weapons and their helicopters. And I'd inevitably find an open door. And as my job as a military cop,
Hmm.
I have to go in there and report what's
Oh,
going on.
yeah.
And I remember I was like 20 years old the first time, and I was like, and my flight chief was like, "Are you going to be okay? Do you need me to come out there?" And I was like, "No, just stay by the radio." I'll go in there all by myself. Because I was told that I would see old helicopter pilots,
Hmm.
and I don't know, and I'm creepy, so I believed
Hmm.
it.
Right.
And I was really like, okay, here I am. And I announced myself whenever I
Hmm.
went into anything.
Good thing to do anywhere.
It
Yeah.
just, that's normal practice, but
Yeah.
also like for me personally, I was like, I want the ghost to know that I'm coming in.
Hmm.
Go away before I get
Right.
here.
Well, it is funny though, because I'm big. Nick gives me a hard time for this. I'm big on just like vibes and little things like that in general. Like I think that like talking to your house is a good thing to do. I think that like any of those little like intentional ritual type things you can do.
And
Do I?
your plants. And
Yes,
your
absolutely.
plants.
Stuff like that. I think that just like there is something about those intentions that you're putting out there and you're verbalizing it. I don't know what psychosomatic element or mechanism is happening there, but it seems like it is generally a good idea because you hear so many people that have like, malicious hauntings of some sort, and you hear about them just forcefully telling them to stop. It
Well,
seems like that works a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of
I
times it
think
works.
I think when we're talking to our house, when we're talking to our plants, when we're talking as our cats back and forth with
Hmm.
one another, we're really talking to ourselves and for ourselves. And I think a lot of what people experience is a lot of our anxieties. It's a lot of our
Hmm.
fears. It's like, again, I don't believe in ghosts. I lived in fear of them all my life. We talk about Brendan and I,
Hmm. The co-creative element.
place
Yeah.
right in places
Yeah.
being primed. Well, of course that place is haunted. Have you looked at it? It has
Hmm.
working shutters. Of course it's haunted.
But
And
yeah.
it's really we're creating that. And when we speak to ourselves,
Hmm.
when we speak to the house, we're speaking to ourselves for ourselves. And I think,
It's like a manifestation. You
It,
can
it
make
is.
it
There's something.
scary, you
well,
can make
Yeah.
it good.
there
Hmm.
you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
Hmm.
Exactly. We're
Hmm.
calming ourselves in a way.
Right.
It's a self-soothing.
It is. It is. Now, Erica, I think it's interesting that you had stuff like that happen, especially like while like on deployment, like with the military and everything. Did you like, so I'm sure there's like military specific like folklore or lore, obviously. Like, can you think of anything particularly spooky that you ran into, like outside of like that like you heard about when you went to like a new location or something, or
Mm,
working with different people where they had like established like ghost stories like that already?
yeah, so I think the spookiest thing, but it's not like a great story.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
There is a building where a couple of people had actually killed themselves
Oh,
before I
Lord.
had joined the military.
Hmm.
And so this was a building that housed a lot of things, and so we had to do building checks, and
Hmm.
sometimes I would hear doors slammed.
Mm,
And I would go towards it because I need to find out if someone is in there.
right.
Sometimes people are working late. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world if someone's
Hmm.
in there. But I just need to know. And I would creep myself out. I would get really, really scared because I was young. But
Hmm.
that's very separate from the things that I dealt with when I was a kid. So that's, and I mean, you can say imagination and things like that as a kid, but I was very specific when I was little. I kept diaries and I would say, this happened, and you will always believe yourself that this happened, even when you grow up. And because no one ever believes you. So I have to stay kind of loyal to my younger self.
I love that.
I
I
think
love
that's
that.
admirable. Elizabeth, I want to bring it back to you though for a second because Erica says like you told not to believe in things. I'm going to presume from your parents, guardians. Elizabeth, is it the opposite with you where you told not to and you're like, well, of course not? How where do you think you developed from? I'm curious about that.
I think I was pretty much a rule follower.
Mm,
That's what it
A
sounds
hundred
yeah.
like.
percent.
I think I just did what I was told. I was like, okay, I don't believe that. I'm very good. So
Yeah.
Erica was definitely the rebellious one.
I was the most rebellious.
Yeah. The little black sheep.
Oh, we know
But
how that goes.
But but you said earlier though that you love stories, and where do you think that
yeah,
comes from somewhere in particular? Or is that
I don't know. I think
I preface this by saying like I never like when parents or other relatives go, "Oh, you do art. Well, you get that from this person, that person." Sometimes kids just
um,
create things on their own, but I don't know if that comes from somewhere that you've followed breadcrumbs back to discover about yourself.
I'm not sure. I think I guess I was kind of like labeled the maybe like the creative one though, wasn't I? But
Hmm.
You were.
but nobody, I mean, I don't know, like no,
I would trace it back to our grandma Valencia.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Mm,
And
But then
then,
again, but although like our parents were very like strict in like what we believed, they were always like
hmm.
really supportive of like whatever like you want to
Okay.
do music, go do music.
Hmm.
You want to go flit
mm,
off and write and whatever and do
Hmm.
that. They were always like supportive of that. They were just very religious.
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
were very religious, but like, I think that grandma really inspired you a lot. And I do think it comes from history because we had a music writer. Remember the little painting that I made you with
Oh yeah. That
Anna
yeah. Hmm.
O'Doherty's song? And I was like, this is like for you. Like, you come up with these things. You write
Yeah.
music, you write poems and songs, and
Hmm.
you do all of that. I think it comes from somewhere, maybe not our immediate family,
Yeah.
but I've always felt like you got it from somewhere in our past.
Yeah.
You're just carrying it forward.
I love that.
Well, I know you two in the episodes I've listened to have talked a lot about family. I forget, I don't know if this was a grandma that you had mentioned a moment ago, but I remember listening to an episode and one of you spoke specifically about having a dream about somebody and you were walking with them. And I remember thinking,
Oh,
oh, that's very sweet. And then another one of you had about the dog laying down beside you, and I thought, well, that's very sweet. Yeah, I'm sorry to bring that up. That sounds like it's still tender, but no, I
yeah.
thought like it seems like if you were to point to experience there's so many familial and there's
Yeah.
so many dreams that the two of you touched upon that you
Hmm.
go back to is like, well, this is the thing that makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we love our family.
We really love them. We're very tied in. We're very connected to everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, even if they're not people that we speak to on a regular basis, but just like family is so important to us. And I mean, I've always had very vivid dreams, very
Hmm.
vivid dreams. And so when we were little, we were much closer to our family than we are now. But unfortunately, it's not the same way now, not for any particular reason, just like everybody's moved away. So it is kind of fun to reminisce and talk about those
And
things.
I think that's just a natural process of as we get older. And yes, spreading out happens as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I've
we've also really been always interested in like like our ancestry. Like we've got a grandma from Mexico, and then our other side is from Ireland. So then we always get into like the folklore of those regions too.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
so that's always fun to dive into, and I think we want to dive into that a little bit more.
I was going to say I've always been really interested in some relatives that I always heard stories about, and one in particular, I had a great great grandfather that I actually met. I was at his 109th birthday. There's a
Oh wow.
photo. I was two. I was two.
Wow.
I wasn't really getting up to anything. I was 2 years old. But so there's a part of me that thinks like I might be in this for the long haul, and maybe I should plan accordingly.
Yeah.
But I love his name was Calpurnia.
Ooh,
Calpurnia Inman.
strong. It's a strong
And I thought
name.
it's a great name. And looking it up historically, the only other Calpurnia I can find is Julius Caesar's wife. I'm
Oh
like, so
wow.
he's born
No
in like
way.
1870s Mississippi Hill Country with a girl's name. Part of me really wants to take
Yeah.
his name as my middle name because my middle name is David David. So
Which is like,
yeah.
You need to
So
do
Oh, I'm
that.
so
I'm thinking,
sorry.
I mean, no, it's all right.
no, it's just,
It's in part a Catholic upbringing and
yeah,
mine not thinking like I can pick a better confirmation name than just
right.
doubling down on David, which I
Yeah,
wasn't particularly attached to.
Well, let
right.
me just tell you,
Tell
our
me.
grandmother's name is Mary.
Yeah.
Elizabeth's name
Hmm.
is Mary.
Our mom's name is
Our
Mary.
Right.
sisters,
Middle name is Maria. Yeah. We're
and
They were Catholic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be Marie, but I guess Regina and Elizabeth had hold, and they named me.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
we got to pick your middle name, I think.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
Yeah. We got to
Oh,
pick your
I
middle. We didn't get to
have,
pick your first name.
that's
if it
fascinating.
makes you feel better, I have on the Georgia side of things, in Griffin, I have a great grandfather, Felix, and Felix had 14 to 17 names, and it's because his mom was only allowed to have one child.
Oh
So
my.
she named them all the names she liked.
She packed them
So
in there.
Hmm.
packed them in there. And I always thought again, I don't know why. It was not these aren't happy people. So these
Hmm.
aren't always good
Right.
stories, but I don't know why she was only allowed to have one child, but I'm assuming it wasn't a good thing.
Oh wow.
But I
yeah.
just always thought that was like really beautiful. And you see some of the Spanish people in particular that have
Hmm.
like 40 names
Yeah.
or like
Mm,
French aristocracy, and they just goes, it's just a bit much. But there's something really endearing about that. And so these are people I've never met. Well,
But you
met
feel connected
Calpurnia,
to.
but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do, and I think part
Yeah.
of it's because I don't know them, so I don't know how they could disappoint me.
Right. Exactly. It's very
Yeah.
pie in the sky. Yeah.
And but it's also that like those are sort of stories that I do want to wrap myself
Hmm.
around. But family's more complicated for me than that. But
Right.
that is,
yeah.
but when you talk about the folklore of family,
Right.
like
Right.
those are the stories that, like I couldn't tell you anything about my aunt that lives, that I've known, but those stories, like there's something that's so like bittersweet and beautiful
Mm.
about them that they will outlive me because I have told
Hmm.
strangers on the bus that my, great grandfather Felix had X number of names.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's like the whole basis of what folklore is. It's their stories, they're told by word of mouth from generation to generation.
Hmm.
And that's what
Mm.
they are. And that's why they live so long. And that's why they change subtly from, years and years over time. But that's what they are. They're word of mouth stories told by, from your father to your child and on and on
Hmm.
and on.
I see what you're saying. I agree. And I raise it just by saying that they are the exceptional stories of people and events that we want to keep around, that we
Yeah.
want
Hmm.
to wrap
They,
ourselves in.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they definitely
Not
pass
everything
themselves
makes
on
the
the way
cut.
you say.
Not
Right.
Yeah,
everything makes the
right,
Yeah.
cut.
Not every,
right.
if, yeah. Like what do we say about folk song,
Listen.
Nick? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, they're not all bangers. Like Wayne
Right.
Gretzky, like so much will be written about Wayne Gretzky's life, but the number of sandwiches the man consumed is not going to be
Yeah.
high on that
Right.
list
Right.
because this
Right.
is not what we maintain
Right.
about him.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's interesting from a, like you were mentioning, like the stories of our family and everything and how those intertwine with like folklore. Like I have a very Irish family on my mother's side. Growing up, a lot of the stuff that people think is like paranormal or weird or anything was just normal to us when we were little. Like I didn't realize not everyone put salt in their pockets when they went to funerals. I
Oh,
was just that was just like what we did because our
that's cool.
I remember my grandmother literally putting. Do you remember how McDonald's salt packets
Yeah,
used to come in
always ready to
those little
season
like
something.
tubes? Like so, it wasn't like it was like special Catholic salt. It was literally like McDonald's salt.
I mean, our grandma would
Yeah.
steal all the salt,
Right.
Right.
but
Yeah.
I think
it wasn't
touching
for
the
that
hands of your
purpose.
grandma makes it Catholic.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's
Makes it special Catholic
it's practically blessed. Yeah, it might
Yeah.
as well be. But like stuff like that, or like even some of like the stranger, what some people would call stranger things, becomes like offerings, and things like that. It's almost like ancestor worship stuff. That was just normal, and you don't realize it's not normal until you start talking to other people, and you're like, oh. So you guys don't do this, Those stories that stick around with you are, again, like you mentioned, Nick, are the ones that have usually some sort of greater truth associated with them as well.
May I?
Yes.
May I interject just to drive your last statement home, Brendan? I want you to tell the story of seeing a shadow at your grandparents' house and how your
Oh,
grandparents
God.
reacted the
Okay.
next morning.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Okay. So I was young. I was maybe 12, 13. So it was a long time ago. This is the first time my parents are going to be hearing this story
You're
because
welcome.
because one of those
I miss
because I was
Barry.
honestly because when you're that young.
Special story
Yeah.
right now.
Because when you're young like that, and Erica, you probably understand this. When those paranormal things happen, you just clam up about them.
I'm sure your grandparents told your parents about this
I'm sure they
because
did.
their
Yeah.
reaction is my
Yeah,
favorite
no,
part of the story. Sorry.
Grandpa was like, oh, but so
Well, let's
yes.
hear your
Yeah.
POV.
So my point of view, I get up in the middle of the night from my grandparents' like spare bedroom, which is like bright pink, fluffy grandparent bed, with all the frills and everything. So I'm crawling out of that little cocoon at like 2 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom, and I go and walk down the hall and everything. Go to the restroom, and as I'm leaving, I'm walking down the hallway. I know our listeners can't see me pantomiming this, but next to the door,
Just imagine what a hallway looks
yeah,
like.
imagine a hall. Most people have been inside a hallway at some point in their life, if they've been lucky. What's in front of me is like a floor-length mirror, and right next to that mirror is a little like nightlight. And I think I see something behind me. So I turn around, nothing there, of course. As I'm walking, I turn in right into the bedroom. And when you like know something's behind you, like any of us live with animals know when like our cat is just sitting there being cute. Like you just know that's where they are. I know there's something behind me. I turn around and there's this black mass in front of me. I wouldn't call it like a shadow person, like some people talk about. I knew it was solid because I couldn't see nightlight that was next to the mirror, which would have been right to my right. So I'm like more confused and scared at this point because I'm thinking it's like one of like my parents or something, or my brother who came up behind me or something. So I reach for it and it just like turns into like wisps of like smoke, basically. And I'm now fully awake and scared as hell. So I yell and everything. No one else wakes up except for my grandfather. So I walk down to him and everything. He's like an old farmer, so he's like nothing bothers him. And so I'm telling him what's up and everything. And he was just like,
Is he frozen for you? Sorry. Ah,
did
sorry.
I freeze?
You totally did. It was very dramatic. It was very
Oh
dramatic.
my gosh.
Okay,
Your
is it
grandfather.
just me or
It's weird that that's when it froze, right?
I'm sorry. I thought it was just me, so I was texting Beth and I was like, "Oh God."
No, it's not just you.
Okay, good.
So
Oh my
so
God.
you're yelling. Your grandfather comes out.
Oh my God.
You
So
tell him what's for. That's
Finish
where
the
we're at.
story.
I tell him what I saw and everything. I go to explain it and everything. And he just goes, "Oh, so you met him?" Like
Yeah.
it was, and I'm like, "Who?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't need to worry about him." He's like, "Go back to sleep. You're fine." He's like, it was very like, it wasn't like dismissive, like, "Oh, you're being dumb." It was like, if a kid was complaining about a stink bug in the corner, it's like, "Oh, you don't need to worry about him. Just go to bed."
It made grandma's crimes of salt normal from then
Right.
forward.
He didn't
Right.
give you any explanation.
No, nothing, just nothing. And the next,
Like
and the next,
never again?
like I tried to talk to him about it the next day, and he was just like, "Oh no, he's Just you just don't need to worry about it. He was very quiet about it, very dismissive about it, just very hand wavy, but not surprised at all. Like there was no surprise in his voice. And this is someone who was he was a preacher for the United Brethren. He was a cop at one point. He was in the military. He was a public school principal, like very like no nonsense, like central Pennsylvania Dutch like kind of guy, like just completely no nonsense. So what that did for me when I was young was it one solidified that like stuff does happen. And if I'm seeing stuff, I don't need to pretend like it's not there, but I also like don't need to worry about it. Like, cause what he did do was a very good job of like, when he said like not to worry, I believed him. I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
he wouldn't, because he wouldn't lie to me kind of thing.
Wow.
So if I don't need to worry, so like whether or not that was something that he had ever experienced before, I don't know. That might have just been like good parenting on his part to be like, oh, just
You
downplay.
should have some salt before you go back to bed.
Right. So yeah. So now I have salt everywhere, just in case.
Wow. That's a pretty good story.
Yeah.
That is a really good
Yeah.
story.
Did you ever see it again?
No, nothing. No, and nothing weird in that house ever really happened again. Now that being said, there were quite a few deaths in that house, but that was just because of like you get enough.
Well, that
You get enough
doesn't
old people
always
around, yeah.
equivalate
Right,
to
exactly. That's what I
something.
meant.
A house
Yeah.
that old, that was normal. Like
Right,
I know,
exactly.
I know people were laid
Yeah.
out in this house.
Right, exactly. So,
By the way,
Other-
pro tip for you: if you buy a house,
mhm.
like I may have done in August of 2020 with this particular one, don't read, or at least wait until broad daylight, like a ghost tour on a boat, before you read the obituaries of the original owners and builders. Because
Ugh.
when you're still acclimating to the sounds of a new house, a new old house, there's nothing worse you could do at 3 in the morning. I wouldn't recommend it.
I can tell you that the bar that I work at, that was also one of our episodes.
Mhm.
I have worked there until 2 a.m. by myself, alone at night, closing, and I hear everything.
Mhm.
That was the OG Del Rey Mayor's Home that turned into a hospital, that turned into like 5 other
Ugh.
things after that. And I promise you, there was only one time I got scared. And that wasn't because I saw anything, it was a presence that I felt one time.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I can walk through there blind because I've worked there for 6 years. And I'll go get the mop bucket after I've turned all the lights off. I go do everything I need to do, turn off the lights upstairs. I don't get scared. Never do I ever get scared. It was just one time. And there's so many deaths in there, and there's so many like lore
Sure.
around it.
Right.
But I don't give in to that. It's just that is what it is.
Yeah.
And
Go on. Sorry.
and then maybe there was something that one time. I don't know.
Well, so
But-
I'm curious, like where were you at in your evening? Like were you upstairs or downstairs? Were you right about to leave? Did you abandon any of your duties to get
did
out of
not.
there? 'Cause
No, I
would
did
have.
not.
I'm not a proud man.
So I went upstairs at the end of the night. I was closing bar and my servers had left and I'm manager. So I go upstairs to turn off all of the lights because we have a whole nother bar upstairs. So I need to go up there, turn everything off, make sure everything's locked up. I came down the stairs and I go past the kitchen and it felt like this massive, heavy presence that was watching me. And I was trying to figure out the lights, and I actually started to shake a little bit because I felt scared like I was a kid when I was in the basement of my house and I need to turn the lights off and run up the stairs
Right.
as fast as I can.
I still do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. That's how I felt, but I'm like, I'm an adult, get it together. But it just felt like I was not supposed to be there. So I had to check the back door. I got the kitchen lights off and then I walked out and I did it calm and smoothly because I'm in the military. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Just fucking get out of there. Sorry.
All right.
You're fine.
So I walked out and then I completed turning off everything and then I got out of there. But I swear that is the one and only time that I feel like there was a bad presence.
Hmm.
Well, I have an interesting one, and again, of course, Brendan knows it. By the way, I apologize. I keep having to mute myself because I'm coughing, but I did have to laugh, not to call you out, Elizabeth, but you got that camera tracking you, and I saw you duck down as you tried to sneeze, and it just followed you, and I was just laughing to myself about that.
It
So,
moves. It like follows me.
I know.
yeah, there's no escaping it. It's the panopticon.
I'm not fancy enough.
Well, I have a few jobs really, but one of them is I teach music privately, and at one of the places I used to work, which was the person I learned most everything from, we I lived in a town that was started by a cult. And yeah, pretty cool. A lot, and believe it or not, a lot of towns in Pennsylvania were I guess,
Shocking.
Yeah,
right.
right.
This would have been the mid 18th century, mid to late 18th century. And Brendan grew up in the town right next to it, which was actually an oil town.
Hmm.
Which again, oil and cults, that we have a lot of that.
Yeah.
So the music shop was located in a really well-known building because it was the cult leader's home. And it also became later the home and office of the town doctor, Dr. Stewart. And so the
Nice.
cases where we had all of our pedals and strings was an old built-in apocryphy case. But the building itself, I want to say, went to, I might be wrong, but the oldest parts of it were like 1796. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I actually think it was 1780s, I think.
1780s?
I think it was
Either
1780s,
way,
yeah.
Wow.
But
it was
it's old.
one of the first structures that was first European structures that was
Hmm.
built there.
That's cool.
It was very cool until
Hmm.
you were there by yourself at night and you had to like
Because,
shut things down. And then the nights of the long moon
right.
and it's like very dark. And it's a spooky town because it was right in the little tiny square.
Can I spend the night there with my spirit box?
So, okay, so
If we still had the
we still
shop
had-
there, I
no.
would invite you. But
yeah, because the one that Nick's talking about, not to interrupt you, Nick, but the one you're talking about had like bad vibes associated with it.
Sure
Like
enough.
that place was creepy AF. Now, the other music studio that we had for quite some time was also
well,
haunted.
it's still
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's still
The family still owns it.
Yeah, the family still owns it and everything. But that was one of the ones that I used to be an audio engineer, well, still am, but I would have clients over and I'd be recording.
Well, and I'll pause you right there. So
Yeah.
the first place we were talking about was the cult leader's home, later the doctor's house, and it was a long-serving doctor. Like he was there until like the
Yeah.
1950s. The second place, so after a while, when with the guy I learned from, he died. His wife, who was also before arthritis, like really took her hands. An amazing classical guitar player, still a great teacher, but she sold that buildings and moved down into the place Brendan's going to talk about. This place used to be the hardware store going back to 1870s, 1880s.
Yeah, so still super old, but completely different vibe. Didn't had a great vibe to it, but I would have clients over and we'd be recording, and like you both know audio, if you have people stomping around outside and making noise and you're using like a good microphone, it's gonna ruin takes, you know. So I would have clients over and you would hear people running up and down like these old two sets of stairs they had in the building because we were on the second floor. You would hear people running up and down the stairs, you would hear people talking, and you learned after a while that like there's nobody there because there would be Sundays where I had the both front and back doors locked. You hear someone run up the stairs, mumble something, and run to the back of the building. And I had this one girl, Monica, in there one time recording. She was like this pop artist, and she got like halfway through a take, and she was like, can we do something about that?" And I was like, "No, we'll just wait." And she's like, "Well, there's someone out there." I'm like, "There's no one out there." I'm like, "Trust me, just chill."
You could
And
not sneak into this building.
Yeah, because it was super old and creepy.
So
Yeah.
if you didn't hear the doors, but you'd hear somebody in the stairwell, you like, and sometimes I chalk it up to different heating systems, and wood is very,
Right.
I've got old cast iron here and it pops and everything and clangs sometimes, but
Right.
no, I heard it a couple times, but
Yeah,
one time, I will say, one time, it was just a squirrel, and we had to like try to wrestle the squirrel And there was something I one time had to call the cops on a squirrel. That's a real story that I'm not going to share right now. Some of these
Can,
squirrels up here, let me
can I
tell you.
share a really funny story that happened the other day?
Please, yes, yes.
I was working at a bar before it opened, cleaning their lines. I will not name the bar. However, this is Nova, whatever. There's little
Hmm.
mice. And
Yeah.
so I'm filling this bucket of water because we do like the whole thing, cleaning with pumps. It's all
Hmm.
a mutt, like too much. But anyway, so I'm like standing in the kitchen and this little fluffy mouse, like just this big with a
Yeah.
big fluffy tail, comes out and he comes out and he runs towards me and I'm like, "Oh God, you're mangy." And then he like goes and stands in this corner, watches me leave, and then when I come back in to fill the bucket, he just hops on over and I'm like, you just want to be my pet. I get it.
I guess
It's
so.
fine. We're just meant to be. But then he ran away. But he was the cutest little mouse I ever saw.
Aw. It could
Out of
just,
all the
it could,
bars I've worked at, that was the cutest one.
that was right, right. It could sense your energy and was like,
Yeah.
oh, like
Yeah.
this is a cool person.
We're
You need to bring a
Okay.
friends
mouse.
now.
You
Yeah.
need to bring a mouse home for Arya, your cat.
I
Aw.
know. And they would be friends because Arya has no survival skills whatsoever. They would just hang out.
Oh my gosh. Like Elizabeth, have you ever lived or worked in a haunted location? Because I feel like a lot of people have worked places over the years that have like folklore and history associated with them. So like I feel like there's a lot of places that have stories. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I hate to say how boring I am.
No,
I
it's
mean,
okay.
I do ghost tours at Lake
Yeah.
Lanier, which is rather haunted.
Yes. Yes. No, no, that's no, you know what? That's actually a really good point. Yeah, you're like that is one of your jobs. So,
And the people who come on the tour, I'm
mhm.
telling you, they have some stories.
Oh
So I
God, I bet.
do, because people who go on ghost tours, they've got experiences of their
Hmm.
own. So I do like to hear their stories. But everyone always has better stories than me.
There could be something said for certain people attract a certain thing.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think
I just collect the stories and I
I
Right.
put them
think
back
I
out into the
think
No,
universe.
that's
Beth is living her life and she is very like da 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 not on purpose.
hmm.
That's just how your mind works.
I'm open. I just,
Well, don't say that too
oh,
loud.
Right.
well,
Yeah, you
right, you
say
might
that
regret
now.
that.
That's yeah, that's
Right.
well,
Oh, the
we
thing that
did,
we've been looking for. There it is.
Erica and
right.
we did Bloody Mary on the
That's
podcast.
true.
Oh
She
my
actually
God.
really did a lot of stuff and I was
We
very
I
tried it
have
nervous for
all.
I
her.
Nothing
have a
happened.
confession to make, and I don't know. I don't know who's listening,
Oh
but
no.
some relatives might learn something. As Brendan knows, I lived many of my teenage years in a house by myself
Hmm.
where there wasn't much of a floor in the bathroom
Correct. Yep. Can
because it had
confirm.
don't make that face at me. It had rotted away. It had rotted away, and I'll tell you why it rotted away. It rotted away because we moved into that house when I was on my sixth birthday, which is not a
Mhm.
good day to move, like surprise. But a neighborhood kid some months later told me the Bloody Mary thing, and the shower, there was a big window right across from it, and it was a sliding thing. And so I would shower with that open like a quarter of the way so I could peek out and make sure nothing was
Oh, I
creeping
see
out of the
what's
mirror.
happening here.
Now, this developed like I had this went on way too long, like way beyond the point, but I had developed this habit, this
Yeah.
practice. This was just how one showers with the curtain
Right.
open a quarter of the way. So by the time I was 14, all the wood underneath had rotted away, and by that time, like a
You
lot of things
destroyed the floor.
a lot of other things in the house had disintegrated. So I remember realizing the day
Oh.
when I realized like normal people don't live like this. It was like 2 in the morning and I was eating a sandwich. And I knew I was eating a sandwich at 2 in the morning because I was staring at myself in the mirror eating a sandwich because I was staring in a bathroom mirror eating a sandwich at 2 in the morning. There's loud music playing and it's just like, this bathroom has no floors. I'm standing on joists. Why? This is not how healthy people grow up.
I
And so
think
that might
that's
explain
very
a lot of
healthy.
things, really.
Oh.
But I'm going to bring it back to you, Elizabeth, because one of like when you reached out, and I was thinking about this lake, and I'm like, that's very familiar. And I looked up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I've been to this place. The one story that I try not to do this too much. I try not to look up into it. I want to. The most famous story has to deal with a woman,
Yeah, the Lady of the Lake.
and
Ooh,
am I
okay.
not? Am I? And maybe you're not familiar with this. You probably are. Am I going out of bounds by saying this is very much like of the Resurrection Mary sort of story?
Mm, I'm not sure about that. I mean, the story about the Lady of the Lake is, do you want me to tell you how it
Yes,
came to
please.
If
be?
you want to give us a
Yes.
rundown, yes.
So it was two women in the 50s. They went out dancing, Delia Mae Parker Young and Susie Roberts. They went out dancing, and then on the way home, they vanished. They just never made it home. And so people searched for them. Nobody knew what happened. So, I mean, people thought that they ran away. People
Hmm.
thought that they,
Thelma and Louised it.
yeah, I mean, just nobody knew what happened to them. It wasn't until I think it was a year later that they found one of the women. They found the remains of a woman. They could not
They
identify
couldn't
her.
identify her. Yeah.
They couldn't identify her. And then it wasn't until years and years and years later that they found the car with the other woman in it. And then that's when they're like, oh, the first woman we found, that was Delia Mae Parker Young, who is the Lady of the Lake. And she is the one who's always seen. She's wearing a blue dress and she doesn't have hands. But she's
That's
the one
spooky.
who's, yeah, no. She's the
It's
one
a
who's
whole
always
thing.
seen. Susie Roberts is never, there's never any reports of her being seen, but it's always Delia Mae Parker Young wearing a blue dress and she doesn't have hands and she's roaming the area of the Highway 53 bridge.
So
Ooh.
this
Yeah.
is why I thought of it as like a Resurrection Mary story in the sense that the woman goes out, doesn't make it back, and she's seen along that path, and
Hmm.
she's always seen in the same outfit. And that's what makes me think of like that similar, like the classic.
Yeah.
I
But
believe it's Chicago is the
Yeah.
Resurrection Mary
Yeah.
Oh,
story.
yeah.
I
I guess
mean,
it is similar. And yeah, it is similar in that way.
our
Yeah.
story on her was a very positive story.
Mm,
She saved someone's life.
Yeah, in
Oh,
real life,
really?
she's
Yes.
never a scary presence. She's
Right.
always like it's
She's
always
even without
saving somebody.
hands.
A young 6-year-old
Hmm.
girl was
she
like,
was on our show.
yeah, she came on to our
Oh
show and gave
gosh.
us the
Okay.
Oh,
story.
I need to listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of our favorite episodes. She came on, she was a little girl. She has this very vivid memory. She was on a runaway jet ski and she was like being thrown through the air
She was like 6 years
when
old.
she like
Yeah.
looks over and in midair, this woman in a blue dress says, "Don't worry, this is gonna hurt, but you're gonna be okay." And then boom, she hits a tree, and then she like wakes up in the hospital and she's fine. Or no, she doesn't wake up in the hospital. She's she goes to the hospital, but
Yeah.
she's
Right.
fine.
She
Like
was
Wow.
cognizant, I
she was
think,
cognizant before then,
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
Before she
And
had arrived at the
and she's
hospital.
she's telling everybody like the woman in the blue dress, what happened to the woman? And
Yeah.
it wasn't until she was an adult, like a 30-year-old adult, and people are telling her, "Well, haven't you ever heard about the woman in the blue dress that lived in
Yeah.
your?" And
Oh,
she's like, "Who? What?" Like
that's
she had never even
wild.
heard of that
Yeah,
before.
because like six is the time where you if you're hearing those stories and you're collecting those stories at
Yeah,
six, you're an early bloomer. Like
right.
that's it's usually like around 10.
Yeah.
Like when you start to really read and stuff that you start collecting
But
these
she had
things as a
never
kid.
heard of it. It had
She
never.
Yeah.
just knew of this thing. And
Hmm.
then for her to come on, and I mean, it's probably one of our very best
Yeah,
episodes.
and then
That's
we asked
Yeah.
her to like describe because Erica and I had never bothered to look up a picture of the real
we
Delia Mae
did
Parker
Mm.
Young
not, and then we did during the episode.
during
So
the
it was
episode.
live
So
looking
we're
it
like,
up.
we're like,
Yeah.
do you remember what she looked like? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, she had like long blonde hair. And
Blonde
we're like
hair.
Googling a picture. We're like,
Yeah.
And then I was
oh
like,
my God, she has blonde hair.
That's wild.
And it
That
was a
is
really
really
good
wild.
episode.
That's what I'll be listening to tomorrow.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I'm sorry I didn't
Yeah.
start with that one. You should have warned
I
us.
know. It was
That's
really
so
good.
cool.
I can't remember everything. I don't re-listen to our episodes because I hate the sound of my voice.
Yeah, well.
So it's really difficult for me
And I listened to them all like 10 times when
Right.
I edit them.
Yeah.
because she does, and then
Yeah.
I'm over here like, wait, what do we talk about? Oh
Yeah.
yeah. But like, I can't hear myself talk. I hate it.
I've gotten over the self-loathing of my
Yeah.
voice at this point.
Well, I
It
guess
is what
maybe
it
I need to
is.
force myself. I'm sorry. I just have a
Being
hard
being being a
time.
public performer and public speaker, I had to get over
Right.
that very quickly. And
Early.
I've
Yeah.
made peace with it by saying like, well, at least it's distinct.
Right.
You know, it's not
just
good
is what it
sounding,
is.
but it's distinct.
I hate the way I sound, and I'm like, oh God, I'm so cringy.
But the nice thing is, if you go back, the wonderful thing about our memories being poorer than we care to acknowledge, which is something that Brendan and I have
We talk a
recently
lot about, yeah.
made peace with. One of the lovely things about it is you go and you listen to yourself from a couple years ago, and once you get beyond hearing your voice, which I recommend, just get over it. But
Yeah.
easier said than done.
I'll try.
Right.
I'll try.
Try.
I do it for me. I believe in you. But it's more like you will listen to yourself and sometimes you'll go like, "Oh, that was a very nice thing I said," or "I didn't know I thought I had that
yeah.
thought." You'll surprise yourself
Critique
sometimes.
yourself a little
Yeah.
bit.
Be kind. You know what? I remember
But be
being a
kind.
kid
Yeah.
and I would record myself. Brendan and I would record ourselves musically, and then I would love it for the first month. And then for like the next 6 years, I would hate it.
Hate it.
Be so
Well-
embarrassed by myself. And then like after that, I'd be like, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
It's like, that's actually
There's
pretty
an
good.
art.
Beth
to
records herself. She's a singer. She's an artist.
Yeah.
I've never recorded myself before. So when
Elizabeth,
she
is
started,
is this typical? Would you say this is the most musicians thing? Is like, I love it. I hate everything I just did.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, you come back and you're like, yeah,
Definitely.
it's pretty good. It's all right.
Definitely.
Okay.
Except for there's some periods of life that I will not revisit. I just
Understood. We don't need to
Yeah.
talk about
listen to
that.
that again.
You were saying something, Eric. I had to finish that thought. I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
No, that's fair. That's very fair. I'm just saying, like, okay, probably do just need to get over it and just listen to them again because I want to remember everything we talked about. Because sometimes people bring stuff up and I'm like, did we talk about that?
See?
Oh,
And sometimes you'll say something, and you'll be like, wow, that was poignant.
Profound.
Yeah. So
one of the-
I would recommend people go listen to them all so that you can,
Seriously.
if other people do, I will too. Okay, deal.
Well, and one of the things
Sold.
that like makes me feel better about it sometimes is we had a folklorist, Thomas White, on at this point probably years ago was the first time he was on. And one of the things we talked to him about was the idea of like the internet and podcasts being like a newer form of like a way for them to like collect stories from like an actual like archival standpoint. And he was talking about how like he's like, yeah, podcasts are part of that history now of like keeping a lot of these stories going. So like, again, not saying what we're doing is like the most important thing in the world, but you could have someone years from now listen to your story about this Lady of the Lake.
it will perpetuate the story.
Yes, that's an important pillar.
When we talked with Jim
storytelling.
Harold, he talked about two things. He said, when we went from porches to decks, we lost something.
Yeah.
Which I think was more beautiful than he meant it.
Yeah.
But that's this whole thing with this campfire is we're sitting around this campfire. It's a very human thing that goes back a long time. This is a campfire of sorts. It certainly lights up in a way that fires do.
Aw.
You know what? When we started doing this podcast, and Eric and I were like, I don't know if we can if we'll be able to maintain doing this or whatever. And I thought about it and I was like, I think we'll be able to keep doing it because like I thought about it over the last, like my whole life. I'm like, okay, well, when blogs started becoming a big thing, I
Yeah.
did this blog and I was able to
She
maintain
did.
that. And then
Right.
like when YouTube was a thing, I did the YouTube and and like all these things change and I was able to continue to do it because like I do consider myself a storyteller. And
Yes.
so like
Oh,
when
for
the
sure.
next
She
thing
is.
when the
Yeah.
next thing comes out, I'll be able to tell stories on that
Mhm.
thing too. So,
Right.
like, if it's just what you are, you just find the next thing to
The
do
medium
the thing
changes.
on.
Right.
Yeah,
The
you
medium
just
changes,
stories-
but I think it was
Yeah.
Viv Libertine wrote in a Crass lyric of all places.
Mhm.
Everything we write is a love song,
Oh,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
cute.
isn't it? Now, when
But
you
yeah,
hear the song that it was in, you might be like,
yeah,
"Whoa!" But
yeah,
no. But
Yeah.
I like to take that sentiment. It's like
Mhm.
everything we write is a love song. Everything you do that you are doing for the sake of doing it, for the sake of compulsion. You do it because you have to, not because you necessarily know why.
Right.
yeah.
Everything is a love song.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I really enjoy doing this podcast with my sister. She lives in Atlanta. We don't get to see each other. This is
Right.
like something that we get to do together, and it makes me very happy. And even though I
Mhm.
work weird, insane, stupid hours, and then sometimes we'll call each other 2 hours before the podcast. What are we gonna do? It's okay. It's okay because we figure it out and we still have fun. And I
Yes.
leave it always feeling very good and very happy. And like, I'm happy to always continue doing this.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Bond here again. I hope you enjoyed our episode with Elizabeth and Erica. I know Nick and I had an absolute blast talking with them. So I want to remind you all again to please, please, please go check out their show, Spirits Uncorked, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'll put links to their show and socials here in the show notes just to make it easy for you. Additionally, we'll be sharing one of their episodes in the near future here on our feed, so keep an eye out for that, and hopefully we'll be talking with them again very shortly. In the meantime, if you have a story you'd like to share, you can find us on Instagram or YouTube at the Ghost Furnace Podcast, or you can send us an email at theghostfurnacepodcast@gmail.com.